Hello, everyone. I'm Reverend Nick Bullitt, the engagement catalyst here at One Spirit, and I'm sitting here today with Simran Jeet Singh. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for joining us. We're here to talk about your upcoming workshop that's focused on Sikhism. And if you could just start out by sharing a little bit about your professional and spiritual background.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in a Sikh family. My parents immigrated from Punjab in the 70s, and I was born in Texas. So that's not a place you would expect to see someone like me. That was my childhood, and yeah, because we were so distinct in our appearance growing up there, we had a lot of questions. We had a lot of run-ins with racism, and what that really meant for us was we had to figure out why we chose to live this way at a young age. And so that was really important, a really important aspect of our own spiritual formation. I ended up after 9/11 getting really interested in race and religion and trying to understand what was happening to me and my community, and ended up doing a master's at Harvard Divinity School and a PhD at Columbia in South Asian religions. And as I was doing that, a lot of my interest came really towards the civil rights and racial justice work. And so that's where a lot of my professional work lives now. So I'm on the one hand, I'm a chaplain at NYU and Columbia. So I'm on the religious side. I work for a civil rights organization called the Sikh Coalition, and I also teach at Union Seminary. So I like try and straddle the different worlds of like the academic and the political and the personal.
Wow, that's great. Can you share with us a little bit about what Sikhism is?
Yeah, sure. Most people haven't heard of it. About 70% of Americans couldn't identify as Sikh. If they're looking at a picture of me, Hassan Minhaj had this really funny bit on Comedy Central where he interviewed people at Times Square with a picture of like kids playing hide and go seek and a bird and something else and a Sikh man, and like no one could figure out what he was saying when he was saying Sikh. So it was funny, but it was sad, and I mean that really speaks to my experience as someone who is so noticeable but unseen.
Mm.
And it's a strange thing because Sikhism is the world's fifth largest religion, and yet we know so little about it, and that has really uh, major consequences for us as a society. This morning, I'm working on a hate crime in New Mexico where racists went into a Sikh-owned restaurant and trashed the place and scrawled graffiti all over with racial slurs like ISIS and sand N-word. And those are the kinds of things that come from hate and racism, and they also come from this aspect of ignorance where we really don't know enough about each other. And so that's a big part of the Sikh experience. I think what I wish people knew, and what the course will really instill, is I wish people knew about our history as a people. One of the world's youngest traditions. It's about 500 years old. It comes from South Asia, but it's not a blend of Hinduism and Islam as a lot of people think. It's its own distinct tradition, and I wish people knew that. I wish people knew about our values that we really espouse and practices we engage daily to live into those values. And so service and justice and love, those are like the core teachings of the tradition. Yeah, it's really interesting to be so focused on race because that defines a lot of our experiences here of being racialized, when there's so much more behind who we are and what we believe. And I'm really hoping to share some of that in the course.
And so, can you walk us through what the workshop will be like?
Yeah, sure. So the workshop will do a few things. I'm hoping to weave together my own personal story and stories of Sikh Americans to give a sense of the day-to-day experience of people. I don't want it to be overly intellectualized and leave out the humanity. So that's really important to me. But I also want people to walk away knowing the basics. I think people who are involved in this work ought to at least know the basics of different traditions. And so I will give some sense of history and core teachings and introduce some of the basic practices. And then one of the things that's really central in Sikh worship is meditative practice and music.
Mhm.
And so I will try and bring in, we're from childhood, we're trained in the instruments and the singing tradition, and I'll try and bring some of that in. So I'll either be in person with other musicians who are friends, or if we're at home still, my wife and two daughters, we all do the music together too, and so we might give you a little family performance of what a worship service looks like. I'm really excited about this. Things that I hope people will take away that will help bolster their work in the world is this really powerful vision that Sikhism offers of what pluralism looks like. What does it look like to stay committed to your own belief systems while also making space for others without judgment and without denigration? And I think that's a really hard thing to do. And the Sikh gurus have this really beautiful vision for that. And I hope to offer that as a way of thinking about multi-faith and multicultural and multiracial societies.